When envisioning medieval European warfare, the image often centers on knights, glamorous aristocratic fighters equipped with swords and lances. Yet, while these weapons played a significant role, medieval combatants employed a wide range of harsh, effective weapons to defeat their foes. The popularity of a weapon in medieval times was influenced by various factors, including its effectiveness, the status it conferred, and its cost. However, the true measure of a weapon's value was determined in battle by its impact on the opponent. In medieval warfare, weapons often failed to penetrate metal armor. Yet, the force exerted could still cause severe blunt force trauma, enough to break bones and incapacitate an enemy. Thus, the effectiveness of a weapon was not solely in its ability to kill, but in its capacity to neutralize an opponent. Swords and lances. The single most important weapon in the Middle Ages was the sword. This versatile weapon, capable of both stabbing and slicing, offered the most damage for the least effort, facilitating the development of a sophisticated martial art. This expertise in swordsmanship brought fame to skilled warriors and inspired fighting manuals like Fiore Dei Liberis, Flos Duellatorum. The sword was seen as a tool where skill could potentially triumph over brute force. The popularity of the sword was also influenced by other factors. The constraints of metalworking technology made swords expensive and thus symbols of status among their bearers. Being suitable for wearing both in combat and socially, the sword allowed its owner to display this status continuously, enhancing its appeal as a weapon of choice. Another high-status weapon was the lance, favored in charges by mounted men-at-arms. The momentum of a charging horseman funneled through the tip of a lance, endowed it with formidable power. However, the lance was generally a one-use weapon, prone to shattering upon impact, and it was ineffective in close combat. While it could be lethally effective on an individual level, it was not decisive in determining the outcome of broader conflicts. Spears, axes, and mace. While swords were popular, polearm weapons were more common among ordinary infantry at various times due to their cost-effectiveness and ease of production. Spears, in particular, equipped large medieval armies affordably and were pivotal in formation tactics that countered cavalry charges effectively, as evidenced by the Scots' victory over the English at Bannockburn in 1314. Though the spear was the most ubiquitous, other types of polearms proved even more lethal. These included weapons combined with axes, blades, and points, enabling them to be swung with great force. The mace, for instance, consisted of a pole topped with a heavy head made from materials like stone, iron, bronze, or steel, designed to deliver devastating blows. Evidence of the destructive power of these weapons is found in skeletal remains from late 15th century Switzerland, showing skulls shattered by the impact of these blows, demonstrating their deadly and incapacitating capabilities. Crossbows and longbows. Spearmen played a crucial role in protecting archers, who were another vital component on the battlefield. Archers' capabilities were enhanced by three types of bows that provided greater range and lethality: the recurve bow, the crossbow, and the longbow. Despite their increased power, these arrows typically failed to penetrate metal armor, a fact corroborated by tests conducted at Britain's royal armories. However, the impact of an arrow could still be debilitating and demoralizing. This effect is vividly illustrated in military historian John Keegan's description of the Battle of Agincourt in his book The Face of Battle, highlighting how even non-lethal blows could significantly influence the outcome of a conflict. Daggers. The primary function of most medieval weapons was to incapacitate rather than kill, as prisoners, particularly those of high status, could be ransomed for substantial sums or used for political bargaining. However, there were instances when killing was necessary, such as under King Henry V's command at the Battle of Agincourt, where warriors resorted to using daggers. These daggers were not designed for slashing, but were rather intended to penetrate armor gaps, targeting incapacitated foes. This method was employed in the demise of Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field. Analysis of Richard's skeletal remains suggests that attackers used daggers to remove his helmet, leaving him vulnerable to the fatal blows that followed. Trebuchets to guns. Medieval warfare was predominantly governed by sieges, where specific types of weaponry were crucial. The trebuchet, often referred to as the optimal siege weapon, was pivotal in these operations. By launching heavy stones repeatedly at the same spot, a trebuchet could breach a castle's defenses, creating an entry point for attackers. Initially, traction trebuchets were used from the early Middle Ages, but the introduction of the counterweight trebuchet in the 13th century greatly enhanced their effectiveness, making even formidable castles vulnerable. For instance, in July 1304, the defenders of Stirling Castle capitulated to Edward I rather than withstand the onslaught of his enormous counterweight trebuchet, known as Warwolf. The 14th century saw the advent of gunpowder, which began to transform warfare as Europeans adapted this Chinese invention for guns. These early cannons first appeared at the Battle of Crécy in 1346, where the English used 5 cannons with limited success. Over the following 2 centuries, cannon technology advanced significantly, rendering traditional castle fortifications ineffective. Handguns also developed alongside cannons and started to play a more prominent role towards the end of the Middle Ages. Initially used in small numbers, handguns became more widespread, providing a simpler alternative to bows. This ease of use allowed rulers to assemble larger armies with minimal training, thus escalating the scale and impact of warfare. As the medieval period drew to a close, these emerging firearms marked a definitive end to traditional medieval combat tactics. Quicklime and Caltrop. Some lesser-known weapons also played significant roles in medieval warfare. Quicklime, a caustic powder, was used in sieges and naval battles to devastating effect. When dropped on attackers, it penetrated armor and clothing, burning the skin and eyes of those it touched. Another unassuming but effective weapon was the Caltrop, a spiked metal device designed to puncture the feet of enemies. These small but sharp objects were strategically scattered on the ground to disable advancing troops. Their significance is highlighted by an instance in which Philip the Good of Burgundy included caltrops in his niece's dowry, emphasizing their value in defense. Interestingly, unlike many medieval weapons that have become obsolete, caltrops are still in use today. They are employed in modern contexts, such as by drug gangs who scatter them on roads to puncture the tires of pursuing police vehicles.